Well, that's good to know. The struggle that I'm going to have is standing right here. I'm normally pretty mobile when I speak, but that's okay. We're going to get through it. And like I said, we are going to cover a lot of demo. I have a PowerPoint presentation because marketing makes me do it. But you can read, I'll play the slides, but really we're going to get down to a lot of demos. So we're going to be talking about a little bit of collaboration here, building Copilot agents in SharePoint Online. But we're going to cheat a little bit because we're going to do it outside of SharePoint as well. We're going to dive into Copilot Studio. We're going to look at different types of agents here. So left is blank right here. How many of you have Copilot right now? You're using Copilot, the paid version or just the free version? And for that, we're not sure. Okay, perfect. How many of you are using Studio? Anybody using Copilot? Perfect. How many are using Agent Builder? You heard of that? Agent Builder. Okay, we're going to cover it. So that's perfect. A little bit about me. Alan Cox. I'm a director of 365 advisory services for a company called Thrive. We're based out of, where are we? Boston, near Boston, Massachusetts. We've got companies, organization, part of our organization is kind of worldwide. We are in Singapore, in UK, in Dubai, in Hong Kong, and pretty much all over, and I don't know, all down the eastern seaboard. And I manage a group of just pure advisors. That's all we do is we talk about it. We're all old. We've done it. We're tired of doing it. Now we just advise on doing it. I am a Microsoft MVP on 365 and Copilot. So there's my information. I put out a weekly, sometimes a little more often than that. LinkedIn, on LinkedIn, a newsletter, mostly on Copilot. So there's a lot of information there. I'll have this slide at the end that you can, but be sure and connect with me out there on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have and you think about it later. I'll try to leave some time for questions, and I think we will. It's hard to say with live demos how it'll all go. So kind of an agenda of items here. We're going to talk about just Copilot agents. What are they? What do they do? The different types of agents. We'll look at Agent Builder. That's in SharePoint Online. Relatively new. And then we'll look at different types of agents that are built within Copilot Studio. Most of them, in fact, the vast majority of them require little to no code. I do have one agent I will show you that's got a little bit of JSON code. Now, full disclosure, I am not a developer. I'm in the wrong place, right? I'm not a developer. You don't have to be. We will show some JSON there, but all of it's going to link into Power Automate. How many of you use Power Automate? Anybody use some Power Automate? It's going to tie into that, and especially when we get into different types of agents like the autonomous agent. So we're going to talk about basic retrieval agents, task-based agents, autonomous agents, and then we'll kind of look at some of the comparative analysis and kind of future things that's going on in the future. What are agents? What are we talking about? So we're talking about agents in Copilot. They used to be called, I think it just used to be called Copilots. Really original Microsoft. But now they are called agents. And I wrote an article in my newsletter a while back called Agent Boss, being Agent Boss. So what does that mean? So the more this matures, and it is very mature now, the more tasks you want to do, you'll have multiple agents, and that agent just kind of does this task for you, does this task, does this task. So the way I think about Copilot, just in general, so if you're in Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneDrive, Outlook, doesn't matter. If you've got a licensed version of Copilot, it's kind of front and center. You can't miss it, right? It's there. Think of Copilot as an assistant, and you want to tell it exactly what you want it to do. Here's the way I describe it kind of this way. I don't know every function in Excel. Does anybody know every single function in Excel? No. The average person, according to Microsoft, uses about 15% of all the capabilities within Excel. That's the average person who knows Excel. The average power user uses about 25%. Now, my 25% is going to be different than yours, right? What Copilot does is it unlocks 100% of the capability. So now you're not knowing all the formulas. You're just telling Copilot what you want the end result to be. Give me a profit table and give me a profit column and put it at the end of, after column J. It just does it, right? I don't have to know the formula. I don't have to add this and subtract this. It just does it. I tell Copilot what I want it to do. So agents kind of do the same thing, but they're focused on a specific area within the environment. So, and we're going to look at that in a lot more detail. So, agents are used in finance, HR. We're going to look at some examples of that. Help desk. So, how would it be? Any of you work on the help desk or answering any calls with any end user, right? Any end user support, right? Most of the questions you're going to get are dumb, right? They just are. Okay, so here's the thing. And I've been doing this for almost 30 years, so I've seen dumb, right? But imagine you not having to answer those routine questions, but you have an agent that's doing it all for you. That's a retrieval agent. That's one example. We'll show that. We'll show a similar example to that. And we see it in healthcare and finance and IT and all over. Now, when we talk agent builder in SharePoint Online, every SharePoint site, how many of you work with SharePoint or admin SharePoint? SharePoint, yes, okay. If you have Copilot, you'll notice that Copilot's right up there in the top of SharePoint, and it invites you to create an agent. And by the way, any user that has basically any access to that SharePoint site can do the same thing. What that does is it takes, instead of searching a SharePoint site, which we all know search is not the best, whether it's in SharePoint, whether it's in Outlook, whether it's in Teams, or wherever across the platform, it's not always the best. But what the agent does, it takes it a step further and gives you analytics across what's in the SharePoint site, documents, lists, articles on the site, etc. We're going to look at that. So it's relatively new, and an agent for this takes probably about, let's see, I have a lot of experience, and it probably takes me about 15 seconds to create one of these. The average end user that has no experience with a little bit of point and click probably takes them about 15 seconds, 20 seconds. It's nothing to do this. We're going to look at this. Drag and drop user interface. It now includes SharePoint lists, which it didn't. SharePoint lists are fantastic because there's a lot of metadata there that you can draw against that. We're going to look at a step-by-step process on some of the agent building, and then we'll get into some of the retrieval agent, which is more Copilot Studio. So let me see exactly where I'm at. I'm old. I have to take off my glasses so I can see. Imagine that. So let's go into a SharePoint site. I'm going to go in and I'm going to drop into my finance site here. Nothing overly special about it. It's just all demo. It does have some resources through a contact pack in here. We've got some documents and all of that good stuff, right? And so notice right there. Now look, like I said, you almost have to be blind to miss what Copilot in Microsoft is doing here. You create an agent, okay? You've got Copilot up here. You've got create an agent, right? It's just everywhere you go, no matter how you do it. We're going to do it now. I'm in the document library. I really want it across the whole site. So I'm going to create an agent, and we'll see just how long. By the way, every SharePoint site already has an agent. There it is. And it's already prompted me about my site. So I didn't have to touch anything. The agent's already there because I have a license for Copilot, and it's going to go across this entire SharePoint site, including the documents. Now, if I want to zero that in, I could go down, get a little monitor here on my screen here, but we'll go down here now. If I want to create an agent here, it will focus that agent. Create an agent. It'll focus the knowledge source just here. I like to kind of have that across the entire spectrum of the site. That way, Any document that changes, it's going to include it. It's going to index it, and it's going to include it in my agent and my queries. So I just do it from the site itself. So we're going to do it from the site. And the cool part about this is now it does have an agent, but if I want to go down and create an agent, I just can create an agent. And we're going to create a new agent here. Now, scroll on down here. I've got the option to edit this agent. I can just open the agent. The agent's built. It's done. Just that fast. It's done. Now, if I want to go in and edit this agent, maybe I want to give it something a little fancier, maybe a little different, right? Or put a logo on it, right? I can do all of these things here, but I'll just show you a little bit kind of how it's built here. So we've got a demo agent here, but we're just going to rename this to Finance Site Copilot Agent. And make sure I don't have one space there. I do not. That's good. It's pretty much, I'll save it here in just a second. Save and close. I'm not going to. The sources here is just this site. If I wanted to go and search for another site, see if this pulls up here in jar. I can search any other site, so I can add additional knowledge sources here. Sort of, I mean, kind of can defeat the purpose because I'm really just targeting this SharePoint site. We'll address that a little bit different when we go to Copilot Studio and all of that. But so I'm not going to do that. I'm really just focusing on this one site. I think I'm good here. Source from the entire site, or do I want to just limit this to files and folders? Again, I like the whole site because then if the CEO puts something on the news and information on the landing page, and I ask Copilot some questions, it could use that information as some of the retrieval. So I like the whole site. I just find it the best down the road. By the way, we can add advanced customization in Copilot Studio. We'll get there. We're talking about Copilot Studio. However, if I do this here, it's pretty much going to wipe me out and I have to start over. So either I start in Copilot Studio. Now that's going to change. They're going to make it carry over, but right now it does not. So I'm going to go ahead and just save this. Let's call it good. And now I pretty much have my agent built up here at the top. Once it's done, here we'll see if this saved. Okay, cool. So let's just exit out of here. Now if I drop down here, I will see my agent is right there. Now I can go in and I can customize a few things to it if I want to. But now I've got my agent. By the way, this agent, I'll just show you where it lives because this agent is portable. All it is, I'm in SharePoint here and I'm just dropping into the contents. I'm going to go to Site Assets here. And we'll see it created a Copilots folder here. And in this Copilots folder is that agent. This is just a file. I can move this file into Teams. I can move it anywhere I want. As long as somebody has access to the SharePoint site, that agent will work for them and they can query. And it'll always be honed in to this site. Okay? So it's just a file at this point. I can share it just like I can a Word document. Makes no difference. But I would just open the agent. Now I have to do it from here because there's a lot of other places I can do it. We'll just drop it here. Nope, that's not what I want. That's a different agent. We're going to drop Finance Site Copilot Agent. Well, there we go. Now I'm going to, if you haven't used a clipboard history, you need to learn how to do that because it's fantastic. So we're going to go down here and I'm going to go to the, let me see. Yeah, let me add this prompt. So all I'm asking is, what is the reason for the most unexpected cost? I'm not telling it what file to go to. I'm not telling it where to get it. I'm just saying, basically, Copilot Agent, you're honed into this entire site. Answer this for me. And we'll just see, fingers crossed, this is where. Fortunately, I'm not presenting because when I'm actually presenting, let me see that. When I'm actually presenting, it Copilot sometimes has an issue, and I present Copilot a lot. So it gave me some information. Let's see what it came back with. It basically said, I gotta- so top reasons for unexpected cost. Now, and it's given me a whole bunch of reasons. And by the way, it references information. I'll hover over that. So we know where it's actually coming from. It's coming from an Excel file that's in this site. That's the knowledge source. So it just answered my question. If I were to go look at that, it's a big spreadsheet that just has all kinds of breakdowns on where our costs are going, right? That's basically the premises of that file. And so now I can continue to, Copilot's doing what's called additional prompting. That's what a prompt is. A prompt is just a request for sending into Copilot. And all it is just, we can use a natural language. I don't have to speak like a robot, talk to a robot. All I'm doing is saying, do this, I want it done like this, I want it in this format, I want you to have this tone. And now I can say, let's dig in. So let's show cost breakdown by department. So we can just start zeroing in on this. And like I said, this is an agent that took us seconds to build right here in Copilot without even going to Code, Studio, any of that, right here on the SharePoint side. And there's all the information from that file. So there's some business numbers. So there's some monthly expenses, fluctuating, blah, 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 right? So it gives me a whole bunch of data and information on my little tiny screen. So cost drivers across departments, equipment failure, especially if we were to open this, it actually tells us how many failures we had based on blah, blah, blah. So kind of get the idea. That is what Agent Builder looks like. Agent Builder is something we don't have to go to Copilot. It's built right into SharePoint now. We see this across the spectrum. If I were to go to Power Automate, and I go to Home, Copilot, what do you want to automate? I just tell it in natural language, and it gets it real close. Not 100%. I sometimes will have to tweak it, but a guy that's not a Power Automate expert, this gets me real close, almost every time. If we go to, I don't know, let's just have a little fun. If we go to, I think we can bail out of here real quick, and let's go to Forms. So let's go to Microsoft Form. Let's go to New Form. Copilot. You want a survey? Copilot will do it for you, and it does a really, really good job. I mean, come to think of it, everybody that I reviewed that's on my team last year did a really, really good job. So I'm thinking Copilot is biased in some ways, but that's the truth. This really does a really good job of creating surveys and all kinds of stuff. We'll show an autonomous agent here in a minute, and we'll use a little bit of form stuff. But so I don't even think we need to be in forms because we'll do this a little bit different here. But I think we kind of get the idea with that. Any questions about this? I'm happy to break for just a second. Otherwise, we'll move on to some of the retrieval type agents. All right, cool. Happy to follow up later, ask questions about it. So retrieval agents are built in Copilot Studio. Very simple, but they basically go out and index data. They're zeroed in on a particular knowledge source, just like the agent that we just looked at, right? But we're tweaking it a little bit more because we can control some of the conversation a lot more in Copilot Studio. Because what the agent builder doesn't have yet, coming, is actions. So if this is the result of my query, then do this, right? The agent builder doesn't do that. A lot of that is built into Copilot Studio. And so, but it does a really good job. Again, natural language processing. We're not, um, the premises of a retrieval agent, though, is that you're interacting with Copilot. You're in the chat section. You're telling it something. You're asking it to return information. That's the idea. And the 2 out of the 3 of the agents we'll look at, these Copilot Studio agents, are based on that premises. You're interacting and asking for information. So use cases, customer support systems, knowledge management, research environments. I mentioned a minute ago, IT, finance, HR. Um, I just built one the other last week, a couple weeks ago, for a law firm. Um, they do a lot of legal research, and they wanted to they wanted an agent built that would basically, instead of them having to essentially Google case law and studies, they can just go to this agent that was honed in on a reliable public website, right? It doesn't have to be SharePoint by any means. We'll look a lot at that detail here in a minute. So they are quick informational retrieval. HR, how many PTO days do we get? What's our bereavement policy? Those kind of things, right? Hey, I'm having this particular issue with my laptop. Have you tried this? Have you done this? You're controlling a lot of the information that comes back, even if it's not in the knowledge base, knowledge source. We'll look at that here in a second. It sometimes does struggle with context. Now, this is getting better because just 2 weeks ago, Microsoft introduced um, a called reasoning inside of Copilot. And reasoning uses 2 new agents that are built in. You don't have to build them; they're built in. If we have time, we'll take a look at it. One is called the analyst agent, and the other one is called the researcher agent. I had a client just last week talk to me about they want to go chat GPT. Fine, I don't care. I get paid the same. I don't care what you do. But you're kind of on your own. And by the way, ChatGPT only has um, uh, two regulatory certifications. Everything else they get, they have Microsoft to help them. It's not secure in of itself. You have to have it has to have Microsoft help for it to be high tech, and it can do HIPAA, but label classification, DLP policy, all that stuff, it has to have Microsoft's help. The argument was Copilot couldn't do deep research. Yeah, I can. So I told him, give me a prompt, any prompt. He wrote a paragraph, and by the time it was done, I gave him a 65-page output in Word of his prompt that I can put in a company information into the research agent, and I promise you, it'll give me more information about the organization than you know. It's amazing what it returns. I've actually done this on our company and give it to my CEO. So it does struggle with context, but that's changing a bit. Um, and some of the insights, again, that's getting a little bit better. We'll take a look at one of the reasons why that's gotten better. So we're going to take a look at a retrieval agent. And I'll just drop into, let me see here, where are we at? We're going to drop into Copilot Studio. So here we are. Oh, look, Copilot will even help you build its agent, right? So that's, I never use that, just saying. I do a better job. Copilot is improving in that. But it does have all kinds of templates, which are really nice, tons of templates. Now I'm just going to go into build to agents that I have built. And I've built quite a few here in my demo environment. And so we're looking at, let's see, we're going to look at, well, there's the law clerk. You can look at that one. So I'll just show you really kind of how, I'll get back to that. I want to look at this HR assistant. This is very practical. This is one that we have, organizations want this all the time. It's super easy. Of course, I can interact with it, and I can name it. I have one called Ask HR or whatever, some cutesy name, right? So here, out of the box, I am an HR assistant, a virtual assistant. I'm here to help you answer HR-related questions. I wrote that, right? Copilot comes out and says, oh, I'm your virtual assistant. Remember, AI results may not be perfect and all this. So I fixed this, and the way that I fixed that is through a concept called topics, and this is how we can control the conversation. So, for example, it's an HR agent, remember. So if we look at system, we're going to look at, spread this out just a little bit here. We're looking for conversation boost. And getting everything to split up here is always fun. Okay. All right, fine. Do it this way. Let's conversation start. Not what I want. I want conversation. Well, actually, the greeting. Let's take a look at the greeting because that'll help. So if I take a look at the greeting. All right. So the trigger is pretty much any time I ask, engage. So here's some of the variations, and then when we get into topics like somebody asked about layoffs, for example, how do I want to respond? Please see your HR representative or your manager. I'm not going to answer that question, right? We're avoiding that question, right? You see that here. Layoff and raises. Hey, when do I get a raise? Please refer to your manager, right? I'm controlling some of the conversation, but out of the box, it does just a pretty good job at what I want it to do. Now, I'm zeroing in on an HR site that has a bunch of policies. That's it. Word documents, PDFs that just have PTO policies, all the different policies, right? And so from here, we'll just ask it a question, and it's not going to do any action. All it's going to do is retrieve the information from the source. So I'm going to say, what is our PTO policy? Now I'm in the agent, I'm testing the agent, right? This is how you can see if it's working. And it's actually showing you how it's working. And we'll see if it actually works. But anyway, so there you go. It's returning all the information back from a plethora of files that are in the environment. So think about it like this. In my environment, I have added this as an app inside Teams that I can push out through the Teams Admin Center. It takes minutes to do. And everybody has it. And I can even control the setup policy where it sits in Teams, which I've done. And so now I pretty much ask the same question. But let's do this. I'm interacting with this agent. So, okay, yeah, it wants me to sign in but I did because I have SSO going, so it told me you need to sign in, but I did. Now, this is what I said, you need to see your manager, HR representative. I'm controlling that conversation because I've asked it to do that. But I can say, what is our pet policy? I painstakingly written a bunch of HR policies, just so you know. So, sorry, I'm not sure I can help with that. Can you try rephrasing? We may not have pet policy, but I thought I did. But we'll say, what is our use policy? Let's see if that comes back to anything. But anyway, you kind of get the idea, but this is really portable agent. I can put it anywhere. I can put it on a SharePoint site. I've embedded it here in Teams. So there's kind of our policy on the acceptable use policy. And by the way, it references where. So I can go into anywhere and reference the document that actually has that policy. Okay, so this is true. By the way, I did this with the law clerk, right? So that's just another example. Here what was held in, let's say, Ohio. I was actually studying, I actually went to college to be a paralegal, so I have a little bit of law background, but I happen to know it's a 1968 case around tree stops. And so we'll see what it returns here in the law clerk. And this is just pointing to a public site. And I haven't used this one in a while. We're kind of going out on this one, but we'll see if it returns. There we go. Peer review how. Stop and frisk. Yep. Anyway, so it returned this case law back without, but of course I can do precedents, I can do all kinds of things with that. I happen to have the entire Microsoft 365 knowledge base on a SharePoint site right here, all of it in PDF. I can ask it anything I want, and it will return it for me. Oh, I did have an error with this. I'm going to see if this error still shows because because Microsoft changes some things, so we'll see. Um, um, let's see if it gives me the syntax. But anyway, yeah, I was seeing. Yeah, see if it comes in. I may not be authenticated to that particular SharePoint site. Anyway, that's fine. If you get the idea, so these are just retrieval type agents that can be built, and really they can be built in a matter of minutes. They don't require a whole lot of um, creativity, scripting, none of that. It's just really where do you want it to hone in on? What do you want to zero in on? And go from there. Now, all these templates are really cool. I mean, they're coming out with so many more of these templates to help IT help desk kind of get you started on what we were talking about earlier, right? There's a lot of that stuff. So really good stuff there. Let's go on to some really fun stuff, and we'll talk about task agents. So task-based agents in Copilot basically do kind of the same thing. You're asking it something, you're interacting with the Copilot agent, you're asking it something, but then it's going and doing something. Now, this one, even though by difficulty, retrieval, task, and autonomous are supposed to go like this. Autonomous is more advanced. We'll get to that one here in just a second. We'll just show an example here. This one is actually the most complicated, the one I have. Let's see how it works. But basically what we're doing here is we're telling it to do something after we've gotten the information back. Or it's kind of based on a trigger. It's kind of based on a little bit of a trigger as well. But task-based is taking it a step further and actually doing things. Sending a message, writing a line in an Excel spreadsheet, sending a Teams message once something happens, right? All of these things are a task-based agent. And so, yeah, so we'll pop in and we'll take a look at that. Yeah, so sometimes it does use some automation on the back, Power Automate, so sometimes authentication is broken. In fact, earlier today I was fixing some of these because I haven't used them in a little while, some of these agents, and so I had to go in and, it's failing because Power Automate. That's what's happening on the back end. So we'll take a look at some of that on the task-based agent. Yeah, so let's take a look. I have one here, and let me see where I have this one, because this one's a little bit different. So, by the way, on the agents, we'll find this agent. We're going to go to the task-based agent here, which is Sarah. That's just give it a cool name. That's all. I mean, it's just Sarah. So, task-based agent, virtual assistant. Thank you for contacting Thrive Vision. How may I help you today? Now, this could be, and I'll do it right from here, but this could be something that says, okay, I want to, we'll look at the knowledge first, but the scenario here is I want to see, what are your consultants' availability for phone call or email. Oh, and also I might, as an outsider, so this could be a public agent sitting on a public website anywhere, and basically says, I'd like to book a demo. I want to book a demo, okay? So we'll kind of go into that. So here's the knowledge sources. I have a public website. I have just a document, FAQ document around consulting, and then I have a consultant schedule document there as well. So we're going to ask Sarah, and I believe we do it this way because this one's a little bit different because it is. Let's go to channels. This is how you can. This is basically where you can deploy these agents. And I'm going to use a public website. I believe that's the right one here. We're going to go public website. Now notice the starter conversation. I don't know why it does this, because I've rewritten those. So all we have to do is cancel this demo website again, and now they're different. Got me. So we're going to see. We're going to scroll down here because it's going to give me a URL. Because it's a public web URL in this case, and I'm actually going to go out here, and we're going to paste this URL right here, and it should pull up my agent because I have no authentication on this agent. You can code this all you want. So here it is. There's the agent. All right, so somebody, and like I said, you can brand it all you want, but somebody comes to your website, or it could be internal, it could be external. Virtual assistant, thank you for contacting Thrive Vision, how may I help you today? And here I can just say, let's see, consulting schedule. Let's see, wow. Consulting schedule, okay. What information do you need about the consulting schedule? Okay. When are they available for a call? It's here, so it's going to be like, okay. Okay, so it's pulling that file and it's basically saying, okay, I have two consultants that are available, and here's their times, right? So pretty straightforward. Okay, pulling that right from a schedule. And by the way, I can in the instructions. We'll look at the instructions because that's key. Tell them exactly what I want the agent to do, how I want it to respond. I can hide all of that information if I want. Now, what I want to do is I want to say, can I book a demo? That's a trigger. We'll look at it in just a second. Now, it should bring up what's called an adaptive card. That's a little bit of JSON code, okay? Fair warning, it is, but very little. Now, I could have told Power Automate, ask this, okay, I answered that, then ask this, okay, then ask this, but I like it in a nice form. So I used a little bit of JSON code. It's not that difficult. I'm no coder, remember, we already established that. So I'm going to fill in this information here, and if I've done it right, then we should immediately see a response from Power Automate. So I'm just going to say, I'll just put my name in here. And we're going to say, I want this demo to be on the 7th of July, 25. And we're going to say, yeah, there's going to be 10 of us. That's actually company name, my bad. We'll say Toso. Now, my name. And then we'll say, group.com. And I'm going to demo, Copilot Jumpstart, which is a program I started at my organization for training on Copilot for end users. Don't say that. Now, fingers crossed. If I get this message, boom, Power Automate just worked in the background. That was all Power Automate. Now let's see what happens. And then we'll look under the hood real quick. So, if I'm up there, if I'm company working so many tenants, okay, first of all, it sent a message to Teams for my demo team to act on. Then it wrote that line in Excel also. That's a task-based agent. That's what it does. So you give it a prompt, a little bit of Power Automate on the back end. We will quickly break this down, and then we'll get to automate agents. So our knowledge source is pretty straightforward here on the SARA agent, right? The SARA agent's knowledge source. Simple knowledge sources. We got topics and agents. By the way, agents, what that means now is you can add multiple agents to an agent. So one agent will trigger off one thing, it'll go do something completely different. That's brand new, like a week and a half old. I have not even played with that yet. So really cool stuff there. Let's go into tools because they've changed this now. Here's the instructions I was talking about. This is true with about any agent. You want to tell it exactly what you want it to do. So this customer is visiting an IT consulting site, provide information about services and products, uh, respond promptly and accurately to customer inquiries, blah, blah, blah. We can go on and on about that. Generative or orchestration, what that means there is find the best result from the knowledge source. It's like an orchestration conductor. So Copilot is, now that's pretty new. It's been about 3 months or so, where now it says, I want you to put everything in context. And if they ask about a car and there's something that references a Volvo, connect the dots. That's what that does. So then I'm telling it, I only want you to use what I've given you. Don't use the internet. Don't go to like public grounding, right? So I always turn that off when I'm doing it. So then we've got all of that, my starter prompts, and all of the cool stuff there. And so a lot of really interesting things there that we do with that. Now, let's look at the Power Automate. I have this in the Power of My Flows here. I have this here. Okay. Vision demo request. This is just some of the automation that's behind it. So I'm telling it, giving it choices. I'm telling it to do a parallel command here in Power Automate. That's what I'm telling it to do. I want you to, when an agent calls the flow, so when the flow comes up, which is pretty much right at the end there, then I want you to add the row in a table. I told you exactly what spreadsheet to use, and then post a message, and then send that all back to Copilot. The response back to Copilot just says, we've done it, contact this person. And so that's pretty much that, what that is about. And so I want to look at topics here because this is where it gets interesting. This is where the magic happens. This is smoke and mirrors. Demo requests. So if I ask for a demo request, and by the way, this is now basically keyword. So this is the trigger keyword. I can put any word in there I want, but anything that says demo is going to trigger this conversation, this topic. And so there's my card. And so basically all I'm doing here is I'm saying what do I want to happen. I want to respond or ask with an adaptive card, and then I have to fill that out. But basically the card looks kind of like, what's this? This one real estate card looks a little bit like that. That's your JSON. Pretty basic, pretty actual developers out there, pretty basic. And there are tools out there to do JSON coding and reading and all that simple stuff. Microsoft has some good stuff out there. But that's all it is. It's really just that. And then, because for me, that's a lot more user-friendly than having the user say, oh, okay, answer each question as it sends it back to them, right, like a form. So I like this base. Base is just a little bit better. Cool. So we are, I think, doing pretty well. We're going to march right into some autonomous agents. So autonomous agents can be fickle. They're the newest. That's the type of agent nobody has to interact with. Think of it like this. Somebody sends an email to your organization asking questions that are all over your website, but they're just too lazy to search. You can use your website, and they send it to maybe to an info box, right? It's a shared mailbox. And they want you to, they're asking all these questions. You don't want to tie up resources. No more just like the HR bot, the IT bot, or any of those. You don't want to tie up resources for answering these routine questions that are already on the website. So an autonomous agent works off of a trigger. When an email comes into the mailbox, has questions or has this or that, you can, again, we'll look at the instructions, do all of these things, right? That's what it happens. And we can do it in a number of ways. So that's at a high level, that's what it does. They sometimes can be the most fickle because they 100% use Copilot. No coding, no coding at all. But the autonomous is the automation behind it all is using Copilot. So, and you can use any connector you want. Think about it this way: if get in and play around or go watch a video or something on what Power Automate can do, because if Power Automate can do it, Copilot can do it. That's just a way to think about it. And so, this is a good way to really take a lot of time off of somebody's day that's having to answer routine questions. And it could be IT related stuff. You just want to zero in on your knowledge source. You do the same thing. You have a knowledge source that you're drawing from, and so um, yeah, there are some decision making and accountability for their actions. So it is it's AI generated based off of the information it's getting from a website or from a SharePoint site even. Um, but it is definitely improving because there is now a lot more benefit there um, as far as reasoning, the reasoning models that are there. Um, it can be more complex, although I don't find that it's that complex. But some things can be, especially when you get into permissioning and things like that. And we'll take a look at some of that. So let's just dive right in. So one way we're going to do this, I'm going to look at one agent here. Let's see where we at. We're going to look at that. Drop my studio, and Copilot Studio, Microsoft.com. That's where we're at. And we'll go down to my agents. And I have a couple we can look at, a couple of different scenarios. So one is this autonomous email agent. So I'm going to just look at the instructions, and you'll tell exactly what that agent is supposed to do. So this, by the way, I'm going to clean the history here. So this agent here, when a unique new email comes into info@thrive.vision, use the knowledge sources to research the questions that are in the email. Very natural language, nothing crazy here. Use this is a Power Automate actual connector. You have to use it exactly as it is. The 365, Office 365 Outlook send email. So that's what we're using to reply to the original sender from info@thrive.vision. Very specific instructions, right? Not hiding anything. Format it as email, respond in a professional manner as if you're replying to a customer. All these things are very. Again, I like to think of it like I'm giving somebody a briefing. How I want you to act, to behave, right? Um, and so include diagrams and all of that. We're going to use some orchestration. Yes, we do not. Here are our knowledge sources. I have information from an HR site. I have the knowledge source or the learn.microsoft Copilot Studio, and then our public website. They're all good there. We're not using any web capabilities. The tools, which is the action, used to be called action. Microsoft, their name game, I swear, seriously, come on. You know how many calls I get about somebody says, I want to deploy Purview? And they confused. I'm like, what do we have to do to buy Purview? You already got Purview. You got an E3 or E5 or Business Preview. You've already got Purview. Just to what scale you've got. It's Compliance Center. That's it. Okay. But anyway, Microsoft drives me crazy. They used to be called Action, so now it's called Tool. That's what's going to happen. So now, and that's it. So the trigger is basically when a new email comes into a shared mailbox. That is a Power Automate connection. That's all it is. Let's see what happens. So we're going to actually go in. It's in an email. Now, we'll warn you, we're going to do a little bit of, let's see, I actually think I have one drafted, and if I don't, you will do that. I will warn you that we might have to do a little bit of, because Power Automate sometimes can be slow, we might have to do a little bit of, cooking show and show you the finished product. Anyway, but we'll see some of it happen. One of them happens really fast. This one sometimes is slow. I don't know why. But I'm going to say, okay, I'm just going to make simple questions, and then I'm just going to sending it from my actual email address to a shared mailbox in my demo environment, my test environment, and then we're just going to use a shortcut here and say, let's do, okay. So I'm asking questions based on all three knowledge sources. What's our PTO policy? What's our acceptable use policy? What services do you have around 365 Advisory? That's from our public website. And, how do you access Copilot Studio? Now I'm just going to send it on its way. Now, this is where we can roll the clock a little bit because it probably will take a little bit for it to actually get through there. I'll look briefly just to see, because the first thing I go is I look in Power Automate flow to see if that's been triggered. But again, this does seem to take the longest. The new email arrives in shared mailbox, and so that was 5 hours ago. It just takes a month of Sundays. But I'll show you what it actually looks like because, again, cooking show. This is kind of how a result comes back. This is identical to what I just did. What's our PTO policy? It spells it all out because it's hitting that policy. Nobody touched this agent at all. Nobody interacted with it. I didn't have to write a prompt. Nobody saw the email. Just came in and did its thing. Now you can, in the instructions, you can say, copy this email address or send it to me first and then. All those things you can do, total control. But this is what it does. It gives me all the information about how to request PTO. All that's in our documents there. I've asked the instructions, by the way, not to refer to the source. I've told it that, and the reason is because if this is public, I don't want them to know what SharePoint site it came from, right? So, but there's just, whatever you do there, it doesn't matter. All of that, and then we ask you, what do we have around advisory services? Well, that's kind of what we do. Governance, which is mostly falls on my team. Implementation, that's on our engineering side. And then adoption also falls on my team. Support on the engineering side. So specific to 365, I guess, because I don't know if I did wrong with advisory services, but anyway. So that's, and then how to access Copilot, it talks about that because it's pulling that from the source. That one is relatively straightforward. I have another example real quick we can show, and that is over here. You can, if somebody submits a form, you can do this by Microsoft Forms. Again, same principle. Maybe you've got a form on a public website or even internal on a SharePoint site, and they have an inquiry form. There's so many use cases for this. It's just onboarding. We do this all day long when it comes to onboarding checklists. Using a SharePoint list. Brilliant. And there's actually a template for it in Copilot Studio. So I'm going to say here, let's do, okay, my name is now Kyle, and I'll say, hey, at coxbusinessgroup.com. That is me. And then save some time. We're going to say, this is, oh, by the way, I didn't show the agent. But this is an agent that is, it's an autonomous, so that's just how I know what kind of an agent I'm working with here, but you can name it whatever you want. But if we look at the instructions, it basically says you are an office supply agent that receives questions about the office supplies we sell, right? That's the premises. And then here's all of the instructions. Use this connector, reply to the sender, much like the other one. Okay? Pretty straightforward. I win. And then we're going to go, this one should happen fast. I hit submit, done. We're going to go right over to the, in this case, I'll just go to the activity tells you when it was run. Let me close that. That was earlier. Let's try to refresh this one time here, and then we'll see what we get on this one. All right, 7:40 p.m. That should be now. Let's go to my inbox and see what happened. And there is live the questions that were just returned from my automation. That is autonomous agents. So we covered real simple point-click agents, SharePoint Builder called Agent Builder. Okay. Then we showed 3 different types of agents inside using Copilot Studio, from very simple to a little more complex. Some with code, little code, most of them, no code. A retrieval agent, HR questions, IT questions, basic routine stuff, right? Could be internal, could be external. Then we went to task-based agent. Okay, based on this response, do this, send an email, send a Teams message, write a line in an Excel spreadsheet, add a file to SharePoint, whatever you want to do, right? Task-based, does something. How many days PTO do we got? Oh, schedule my PTO. If you have some ServiceNow connector or something in there. All of that stuff. How many days do I have left, right? All of that you can do. That's a task-based agent. Then you have autonomous, where nobody sees anything. Somebody sends an email to an HR site, HR inquiry, info inquiry, sales inquiry. It responds automatically with all of the questions based on a honed-in knowledge source. There you go. I promised that, and we'll go down here. That is pretty much it, but I did promise that we would get to, and I'm going to cover that. It's growing so fast, I'm just a page ahead of everybody. Trust me on that. It's moving that fast. So that's kind of what we covered, a little bit of what's happening here. So much going on in the future. Again, there's my contact information. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn, send me a message, connect up. Subscribe to my newsletter. I'm constantly getting stuff out at least every Monday morning. But sometimes something gets really exciting and I get it out real early. So anyway, always happy to answer any questions going forward on that, though. Anything? Yes.
So, like on the HR systems, does it store like the questions that have been asked and who asked the questions? Like, let's say HR wants to investigate, like what is this person doing? So does it store that?
100%. So there's 2 things. Number 1, there is a new area. I mentioned Purview, and it was inside Purview is a new DSPM AI console that basically monitors all AI, not just Copilot. If somebody's using ChatGPT, you can know about it there too. It's all e-discoverable, so it's all there as well. If you're in Purview and you use e-discovery for compliance, it's there as well. In the Copilot Control Center, you can control a lot of that too. But here's the cool thing. I didn't show it, but there's in the Studio Agent, way out almost to the far right, is a analytics, and they're expanding on that to where you can see what questions are actually being asked. And the reason that's important, not only to see if somebody's kind of messing around in areas or asking inappropriate things, that's kind of what DSPM does a little bit, but it helps you add topics. If somebody's asking this question a lot, maybe I should address that in my agent. So, yep. Anything else? Just.
So you talked about there being like these .agent files that you can move around and stuff. So first of all, are those files that you can download? Like how big are they, and like what's inside of them really?
They're like they're just pointers. Their size are not very tiny, like kilobytes, because they're not really They're not really holding any data. It's all pointing to. I'll tell you where it's actually stored. You can't even actually stored. Is in the split my mind. It's a SharePoint. It's an area it's an area of SharePoint that's not readily accessible. Flip the name right now, but yeah, it's a part of SharePoint storage that is where the data is stored. When you're using those agent builders, now everything else like Copilot, Copilot agents written in Copilot Studio they're a little bit all over the place. They can be because part of it is in Power Automate, which ultimately embedded. That's what I'm trying to. That's the word I was trying to think of. It's embedded storage in SharePoint. Power Automate, like they have their own workspace, right? Their own data center, and then you get into Power BI. It's an entirely different ballgame. Right? So it's a little bit all over the place. But those agents, yeah, they're just a small little file that are just pointers. They just have a little bit of that code. All of the text that was in there, it's in there. So it's smaller than a simple Word document. Yep. Anything else? Yeah.
I saw there was a spot where I believe it was OpenAI's 4.0 model was selected. Is there like the capability to select other models from OpenAI or other sources?
It's just telling you what source it's using, just like the new reasoning model. We'd really I'd like to show that off sometime. That'd be cool. But it's actually using GPT's reasoning part of reasoning model. I mean, let's face it. I mean, Microsoft owns a big part of ChatGPT, so it is based on that. And of course, now they're doing with AI Foundry and all the rest of the stuff that's kind of part of that. So some things you can't in the agent. There is some capability in Copilot Chat, so licensed version, but in the chat where you can tell it different models to use. But in the agent, it's gonna pretty much pick what it needs based on the type of agent that's being written. So it could be different.